episode of The F Word is food, and we've got Rupert Cooper from Philleigh and Cove Café.
Hello.
Rupert.
Thank you for having me.
Can you share your journey with us into becoming a chef?
Well, it was kind of vicarious. I didn't necessarily mean to kind of happen the way it did. I was more a necessity and conscious of doing something I enjoyed and was passionate about being kind of first and foremost. So always wanted to be a rugby player. That's all I wanted to since I could remember. And then all of a sudden, kind of 11, 12, 13, Jamie Oliver came on TV in Naked Chef in his series. The way he approached food, I'd always liked eating as well. So I've always,
Helps.
it always does help. And my mum's quite a good cook. And so she kind of cooked and I was like, oh, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? He came on TV. And so it's just more of an interest that just grew and grew and grew alongside sport and rugby. And then when I retired 5-6 years ago, I was like, right, I need a job and I'm not qualified to do anything else. So let's just give this a crack. And then that's how it went, really.
Cooking it was.
It was basically no choice.
So you refer back to your mum
Yeah.
sparking that interest. So what's some of your earliest food memories that have influenced your cooking style?
I think just France, we always went to France like 3-4 times a year because my mum won't fly. So up until like 12, I hadn't been on a plane. So it was always France. But having said that, their food culture is pretty strong. Whilst they do what they want to do. It's like long lunches, wine, bread, cheese, everything I love.
Dreamy.
And so, exactly, you know how good. And so I just kind of got really fond memories of that. And across France, different regions having different kind of specialities. And then, as I said, Jamie Oliver and Rick Stein's French Odyssey on TV just kept that sort of imagination and interest going, really.
So how come starting your own business rather than becoming a chef at one of the many kind of restaurants and things we have here?
It's true. I mean, weirdly, kind of post finishing rugby, I kind of pinged my CV out, didn't really get any bites. So luckily, a friend of mine used to have a chain of restaurants, and he had one in Plymouth. They needed a head chef. He knew me from Nottingham days, and I cooked for him a few times. So I went to work there as a head chef for like 4 months, and then Philleigh Cookery School came up for sale. So it wasn't as if I was looking for my own thing. It just kind of so happened that the cookery school was for sale. And I just thought, you know what I can do is talk and educate and communicate because of the sporting side of things. So I've always done coaching and I like coaching. I like trying to break a skill down and get people who don't know what they're doing, inverted commas, and hopefully by the end of the time with you, they do know what they're doing. And so you've gone from sport and then food, well, you're still just explaining how you see it to someone else, really.
Yeah, and I've done it a few times at Philleigh and had sort of that experience, and it's really interesting and exciting. And actually, you do challenge yourself and do things that you think, oh, I think I'm all right at cooking, but then actually, when you're learning about it,
I think weirdly, most people who come, a couple of people maybe over the 5 years I've been at the school. No one's ever like an expert. Everyone's pretty much on the same level, has an interest. They like eating, being the first one, which is the main key thing. But two, they actually know more than they think. And it's just about giving them a nudge in the right direction or showing them one or two things that automatically mean they're translating that into their kitchen at home, which for me is a great success, really.
So going back to setting up your own business, so you made the decision, seeing Philleigh for sale.
Yeah.
How was that process? What did you need to do first?
It was a bit, basically, I was fortunate enough that the people who I bought it off are now my landlords. So I've had them pretty much every step of the way to a certain degree of how things work or how things were operating. And it was just an opportunity for me to put my feel on it. But the actual day-to-day runnings, we just implemented what they were doing. We have changed some things over the last few years, but initially it was pretty much a turnkey operation, a little bit like a new build because it had already been going for 5 years and we just took over the reins. And prior to that, I had done some sort of like freelance stuff, whether that's cooking or personal training and stuff like that. So that business acumen I've always been fond of and interested in and trying to sell a product or myself for people to purchase.
Great. And what makes Cornwall a unique place to run a food business? I mean, it is foodie central, my opinion.
Yeah. It is a food, and you do go to other parts of the country and different counties. Actually, food in Cornwall has a lot more kind of gravitas and weight to it than I think a lot of other places in the country, which also makes it very competitive. But I've always been the thought process that critical mass means everyone wins. the more people come down to the county for food or to a certain restaurant, you can only benefit from that sort of level of competition.
And where do you think the current kind of sector is going in Cornwall with regards to
I
food?
think the next 12, 16 months is going to be a really interesting kind of landscape for food and drink in Cornwall, because costs of everything are going up. Labour shortage and people wanting to work in the industry is kind of going down. So you've got two big factors within that industry. I think if you can weather the storm and do okay out of this, you'll come out of it much better. I mean, that's wishful thinking, but I think it's a good opportunity for people who are prepared to stick in and work hard, and really put their head above the parapet. You'll see that will generally turns up with any industry. Those kind of hardships and difficult times do create better businesses, and the weaker ones, or the ones who don't necessarily have the staying power, kind of fall by the wayside. So it's going to be tough, but I don't think it's the end of the world.
No, I mean we're always seeing new initiatives and new people popping up wanting to
Yeah,
be able to do things here and expand on the sector. Do you find it difficult to juggle between using Cornish produce, employing local people on a good wage,
yeah.
with obviously rising costs as well in business?
That's the thing. I think you've got those variables and factors to consider, and you've just got to make the best decision for your business. I wouldn't look at just go, oh, because they're doing it, we'll do it. Doesn't necessarily, it's always fit for purpose. So it's about making decisions, I think, based on your customers, and what you think you're doing will give you the best result. So whether you go super high end and purely Cornish, that will therefore narrow your market slightly, or if you're a bit more kind of open minded and trying to create a more casual dining experience, you'll go that way. So it's I think there's no one size fits all kind of practice, unfortunately.
And what sort of things do you enjoy cooking most? What's your cuisine?
I think I'd probably say like there's this Mediterranean, European, Middle East, or Moroccan, North African vibe. I would say if you had to go gun to my head kind of thing, that's what I like cooking, because one, it's pretty wide. You can't really go wrong. But two, lots of flavour, very simple, and can be utilising kind of fire if you want to, barbecue stuff, which is fun, or just in a domestic kitchen. So yeah, it's all about like low effort, high reward, whatever I do.
And how do you approach creating new dishes? Is it travel based? Is it
I wish it was travel based. I wish genuinely if I could get the budget to go, do you know what, I'm going to travel all year and just learn, that would be amazing. Unfortunately, my business wouldn't last long. I think a lot of it is actually I've probably in myself, because of the way trying to grow a business and do day to day almost mundane things has meant I've probably slipped off a little bit in terms of creativity, and so I'm conscious of that. Certainly now, I was going, do you know what? Let's go back to the drawing board, or just dig into some cookery books of
Yeah.
people and go, actually, let's do that. And because you do, like any business, you stick to what you know, because you know you can either replicate it or do it at a cost, or whatever the factors are in making the decision. But actually, how do you keep your consistent customers happy by offering them something new? So yeah, I think I'm certainly looking at the moment to try and change it up a bit and offer something different.
And you've recently taken over, well, I say recently, it's
So
probably been
yeah,
a year, there we go.
yeah,
Cove, Café and Hale. So a new region, a new kind of style of cooking as well.
big time. I think the cookery, well, sorry, the cafe I'd had on my radar for years. Literally, when I first moved down, it was for sale. I thought this is brilliant. This would be amazing if I could do something here. And subsequently, a few years later, it was the same kind of position, but I'd just taken over the cookery school. So I've always been aware of the space and the cafe itself. So this opportunity, kind of last year, came up. I was like, I think have to do it, because if not, I'll kick myself. Because I'll see someone else doing it, and I'll be like, I should be there.
Angry.
Exactly. So for good or bad, I've taken it on, and the main ethos is about comfortability. People feeling that they can go there and just have a coffee or a cup of tea, but also if they want some nice food, they can have that as well. You've got a stunning view, great location, and just making it a bit cooler. I
Mhm.
think the previous kind of occupants had always been very, I don't know, kitsch ice cream parlor, and I wanted to get away from that and give you something quite cool on the sea. And I think we're doing that. And then the food is all about um, kind of value for money. It's not, I'm not saying it's cheap or it's kind of low cost, but I think we sit in that middle plane where it's value for money. So what you do pay for, I think you get back. Um, for flavour and value.
Yeah, and people don't want to stop eating out. They
No,
want to be out.
yeah,
They want to
exactly.
be able to treat themselves or enjoy a meal, not cooking. But you do have to weigh up when you've got cost of living crisis for people, and you're trying then in a market where
To
people
try and exactly
it's a luxury,
a luxury
effectively.
item. So anything like any industry in that kind of sphere where it's not a necessity, you've got to box really clever and make people go, well, I'm spending 10 quid. What am I getting for that £10? That's my money that I could be putting towards groceries, petrol, whatever, you name it. So it's quite, you've got a privileged position and a lot of responsibility to make sure people are leaving going, do you know what, that was worth it.
We could touch on probably half a dozen challenges over the time that you decided to start your own business. COVID, Brexit,
Yeah.
as we just said, cost of living crisis. Is there any sort of standout challenges from being a business owner, not necessarily food related, but just
But that's the thing. It's like, weirdly, I do almost less cooking than I've ever done over the last 5-6 years that I do now, because you're doing day to day stuff like yourself. Like, how much accounting do you do now?
not nearly
Almost
enough?
exactly, almost zero. Because it's the very nature of being a business owner. You have to have every single hat, every single kind of point of the business. You have to be almost on. Or if you're very brave, you outsource those, which I think takes a huge amount of, to know, as I said, bravery and confidence. I don't have that kind of confidence in letting those things go, because I do like to be in contact and tactile with every single part of the business, because ultimately it's my business and responsibility falls on me. But the biggest challenge, I think, COVID and trying to reinvent ourselves 3 or 4 consecutive times with various lockdowns and procedure changes was like,
takeaway and then
it was exhausting.
eating,
Honestly,
but social distance.
yeah. And I think the third one, I've said this many, many times, the third one was the hardest, because you'd gone up and down so many times, and you know, I literally can't be asked anymore. I'm done. And so luckily that kind of then felt kind of, we got out of it and thing. But that was massively challenging, because having been in the business for a year, I thought year 2, I can kick on now. And then that really kind of threw spanner in the works for 2.5 years.
Yeah, we found a lot of the hospitality industry was sort of decimated overnight.
Yeah.
Couldn't open the doors, people kind of losing their jobs and things. And it's taken a while for people's confidence, I think, to get back to that pre-pandemic and feel brave enough, like you say, about spending money or investment or being able to expand their businesses, because they're worried that at any minute they might need to contract.
But on a slightly contradictory note, I think that COVID and pandemic and whatever actually had a false positive for the Cornish industry, because you had quite cash-rich businesses with grants and funds and what was it, furlough. So a part of your business was pretty much being subsidised, plus an absolute onslaught of customers over the 2 years. So actually, that, I personally think, this, people could disagree, that I think it created a false confidence a lot of business owners within the industry who went on to acquire second, third premises. Now demand is way down because everyone's going away for holiday, which is understandable. Cost of everything massive, and you don't have the benefit of bounce back loans and grants. So whilst it's quite a controversial statement, I think it had almost lulled a lot of people into false insecurity within the industry.
Yeah, a lot of people took those spiked visitor numbers as the new norm.
The new norm.
And for us, from an accountancy point of view, and trying to forecast and work with our clients and say,
manage expectation.
What do we think is going to happen? And you almost go back to 2019 as a benchmark, because everything that happened in between then and now has just been like crazy.
Exactly.
Absolutely nuts.
So looking to those 18, I think the more level-headed and conscious business owners would have done that. Gone, you know, 18, 19 is where we really should be looking at. But the last 2 years is irrelevant to be either bonus or not, and planning off those kind of numbers rather than, oh, we've got 10 million people in the county. It's not going to happen.
And the sun's out now, so we can start thinking about summer and moving forward and plans. How do you think this season
I think it's going to be cool, because we've touched on it already. There are some, unfortunately, a lot of businesses have kind of either decided to fold or closed or moved on for one reason or another. And so actually the businesses who are really established now, people are looking for them and looking them out, and hopefully we can be on that kind of journey and pathway with them. And yeah, I just want, the weather does play such a big part, and not just because the sun is nice. It completely changes people's attitude to spending money, I think. There must be some business psychologist who's got some formula to it, but people generally spend more when it's nice weather, because
No
you're
comment.
like, there you go, the holidays. But do you know what I mean? If you are at Fistral Beach Bar or wherever in Cornwall on a beach side front cafe restaurant, and it's lovely weather, there's no wind, there's no rain, you're going to have another beer, you're going to have another glass of wine, you're going to have we have a pizza. So automatically, because you want to stay in the environment, it just so much for businesses. You can't rely on the weather, but it's about capitalising on it when it does kind of come around.
Yeah, being agile enough to go, right, okay, forecast is looking good. What are we doing about it? How are we getting more people in?
Yeah, and not even more people, but it's for me, my main aim at the moment is let's just be satisfied with customers who are coming and be really glad for them, make sure they're looked after. But it's how we make them spend a little bit more. To me, I think that's more value, because once they're there, it's easier than getting a new customer in.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look after our existing customers really, really well, and just maybe make them spend a couple of quid extra per head. Will soon accumulate, and that will be really help the kind of the balance of the books.
And I think that's a strategy that you could apply to any business, is actually looking after the current customers or clients that you've got and working with them to help them be successful, which then means you're getting more from it. So yeah, that enhancing client experience or customer experience, I think, is definitely a transferable strategy.
Whatever industry, it's much easier to keep customers than it is to gain new ones. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you look at, and I'm not sure, he was a kind of restaurant mogul, whatever, saw his kind of commentary on this before. It's the rule of three. If you can make that customer return to your business, restaurant or bar 3 times, like, they're in for life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important about people who do come back, and this is the cafe. I'm really conscious of every time people come back in, I want them to come back and again and again. And hopefully after that rule of 3, they're fully invested and almost like stakeholders in the business. So I'm really conscious about that return customer.
That's really
feeling
interesting. And would you say then that there's a mix between people that are coming down on holiday and visitors to the county and people within your local community?
It's probably, I've done it almost unconsciously, but my main focus was locals. And this is not because I've got some weird vendetta against holidaymakers. It was purely because the way when we opened was kind of late in the year. I thought, well, how are we going to get through November to February, March? Because this was the reason I took the business on, was because I want it to be 12 months a year. The main focus is locals and events and rewarding them for coming. So actually, I'm hoping that the holiday makers and the guests down here for the summer holidays or whatever holiday will be a bonus to us, and we're still going to look after them massively. But my main aim is to really reward the local guys and community and going, come here and we'll look after you all year round. It doesn't have to be just because it's busy and sunny weather.
And so do you find that you need to have a focus on sustainability as well as kind of local suppliers in order to keep that community engagement?
It's but again, it's easy to say, and I think luckily it's gone out of fashion. It's not such a vogue word, but seasonality in food is key. So we just try and stick with the seasons, because 1, the price is generally cheaper 9 times out of 10. 2, there's more of it, there's an abundance of it, and then utilising it. But our main factor is having a very tight, small menu. It does allow us to be more agile.
So future plans and your sort of personal insights, reflecting back. So how do you stay inspired yourself to keep your passion for cooking and running your own business?
I like to be kind of active and busy, and how do we push? How do we improve? That's a sporting kind of personality trait for me. It's because you go in each day and you're trying to be better than you were yesterday. So I do try and do that from a business point of view. And so it's how do we offer or to improve what we're doing, whether that's doing something slightly different or doing what we're doing just but better. And weirdly, almost less is more. So let's concentrate on doing sort of fewer things, much better, and taking a holiday.
Yeah,
I think
always
that's
a good one.
Always good. Generally, I think that's actually going to hold me in better stead. Is to actually have bigger breaks, have longer breaks, because then I'm not just on the kind of rabbit wheel of running the business. I can step in, and when I come back, I might actually have a bit more energy on it and focus. So yeah, that's certainly a bit of a target for myself.
And trends, any insight into where you think it might be going?
I'm not the person to ask about trends, because I'm very stubborn, and I'll do it. Well, I wouldn't do it. I'll probably, ironically, if it's a trend, I'll do completely the opposite, because that's the kind of way I am. Trends, I don't know. I generally don't know.
Watch this space.
I'd like to think be rosé, bring that Provence style to Cornwall, I think could be quite a cool gap to look at. And again, it's that looking at the cost of things. How do we allow people to go out and eat and drink, but save their money? So actually, the classic small plates style of food, smaller servings, slightly cheaper options for people, or deals with buy a bottle and it's cheaper, whatever. So those sort of ways of getting people to purchase food and drink, I think, could be
So more European
style.
Yeah.
You've got to change a big culture of English people, but I think that could be a real opportunity for hospitality businesses.
Sounds delicious, making me hungry.
Yeah, really.
So finally, just to kind of wrap it up, so most rewarding aspect of running your business, or a tip that you could pass on to another business owner who might be sort of thinking about the challenges that they have ahead?
I think you've got to take pride and some satisfaction in pleased or happy customers. And that's why I work in hospitality, because I generally do love hospitality, and I like looking after people when they are in the cafe or at the cookery school and making sure they're having a nice time, regardless of what they've paid. I want people to go, oh, that was a really cool time, and create those like quite cool memories that they can then tell their friends, oh, we went to this place, it was so cool, I had such a nice time. Because at the end of the day, you can look at all the numbers you want, all the science, and I'm probably the least scientific approached person when it comes to business. My core thing is making customers enjoy themselves, whether at the cookery school or the cafe or private dinner, whatever. Just as long as they enjoy themselves and feel that they've had a nice time, they've enjoyed the food and drink, that has got to be the overarching thing. Doesn't matter how much your food costs or your plate goes out and you're having 70% GP. If the customers
not going to come
back, they're not going to come back,
or tell their friends.
So you can look at all the kind of turnover, profit loss sheets you want, but it's not the key thing. Is making people really enjoy themselves and feel they've had a good time.
A value-based experience.
Very much so.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. So that's Rupert. We'll tag you in all of the socials as well, so people that want to find out a little bit more about the cookery school and the cafe. I can vouch, absolutely banging food in both.
Wicked.
And thank you for coming on today.
Pleasure. Thank you.